Moyuba Olorun, Moyuba Olodumani, Ibaye Bayento Nu, Bobo Egun Arao Nu. Elegua, Elegua, Afokele Kele, Elegua, 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 Afokele Kele, Elegua, Elegua, Alaroye Kila.
As we enter into this space called Congo Square, not the Congo Square of today, the Congo Square of yesterday, the place where indigenous people's remains are buried under the ground. That sacred space where African ancestors crossed the big pond, who lived here, who loved here, who sweated here, who bled here, who died here. It is that Congo Square. And at this time we call upon the great spirits. We call on the angels. We call on the Lawal. We call on the Orisha. We call on the deities. And we call on the saints. And most importantly, we call on the Egun, our ancestors. We ask that they open the portal to this cosmic, intergalactic space that we now step into. So the physical space is not the same, but the spiritual essence is what remains. So you ask, are we in tumultuous times? Yes, maybe in my lifetime, but it has always been tumultuous times for my people. Was it worse than the transatlantic slave trade? I think not. Was it worse than the Trail of Tears that my indigenous people faced? I think not. Was it worse than Emmett Till? Worse than the killing of Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, Trayvon Martin? Was it worse than COVID-19? My people have always been on the brink of tumultuous times, and this time is no different. However, we have a charge to build a world that is more inclusive, that is more understanding, that is based on peace and prosperity for the healing of the nation, for the healing of the world, for the healing of the earth, for the healing of my community, for the healing of my family, for the healing of my family, for the healing of your family, for the healing of your community. And when we realize that our community is all interconnected, then we recognize that when I am at peace, when I am prospering, then you are at peace, and then you are prospering. When we recognize that I am my ancestors' faith made flesh, I am their wildest dreams, so it's on that cloth, it's on that vehicle that I will ride into the cosmic, not just to survive the tumultuous times of today, but the times for generations to come. Generations to come. Generations to come. Through the stars and the planets and the multi-dimensional parallel universes. We are our ancestors, faith made flesh. Bel Congo, Congo la belle. 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 Go ahead.
Ashe, ashe. That was a fantastic calling to us, an invitation for us to join in this sacred time and sacred space together. Hello, my name is Cal Alston. I have the honor and privilege of serving as the chair of the Reimagining America National Advisory Board. And I just want to say, wow, wow, wow. I cannot believe that this is the closing plenary. We have had so many phenomenal opportunities for gathering, sharing, organizing, appreciating, and celebrating over this month. We started this adventure before there was any hint of a coming global pandemic. Last February, just before the beginning of lockdowns, I feel I was enormously lucky to come to New Orleans to meet with IA staff, our co-hosts at Tulane and Ashe, as well as many local artists, organizers, and culture bearers, as we were formed into a larger planning committee. And that meeting was a sign of how dynamic, creative, and challenging our gathering could be. Of course, we reached the moment of change, of letting go of any preconceived ideas of how we would come together. And the beauty of Reimagining America and the beauty of New Orleans is that the transformational form brought us into a new space of imagining and enacting our community. The reasons we wanted to come to NOLA in the first place, the history of displacement, resilience, and renewal have been amply and beautifully reflected in all the work that we see and will continue to see during this closing plenary. So I want to begin my ending with expressing enormous gratitude to all of our performers, panelists, and participants across the entire month. On behalf of the National Advisory Board, I want to thank everybody on the planning committee. I want to thank Erica Colarenas, our faculty director at IA, the IA staff who will be hailed at the end of this session, and who have all just done phenomenal and tireless work on behalf of all of us. I also want to thank Beckham's Bookshop for providing a venue and an opportunity to plug in during the storms, literally a port in the storm. Located in the French Quarter, this bookshop, specializing in secondhand and antiquarian books, has been operated by the same independent owner since 1967. And I know I'm looking forward to the opportunity to browse when next in New Orleans. Finally, I want to thank 3 residents of New Orleans. First is Wood Delahousse, who pulls double duty in all of these events in his role at Ashe Cultural Center and as a member of our National Advisory Board. And then I want to thank Deanna Soto Olson and Ryan McBride, who have been our fantastic partners at the Center for Public Service at Tulane. And now I really want to pass the mic to Ryan to introduce and guide us through the rest of tonight's program. Ashe, ashe.
Thank you so much, Cal. I want to echo your gratitude to everyone involved. And good afternoon. I'm Ryan McBride from Tulane University here in Bulbancha, also called New Orleans. As you might have heard, we're recovering from a hurricane. Schools are closed. More than half the area is still without power. And our thoughts are with everyone around us, especially those in the coastal communities that took a terrible hit. And yeah, so over the past month, we've been collectively reimagining the multiple systems and structures that shape our lives. And I personally tuned into these conversations, often exhausted and overwhelmed by everything that's happening in my life and everything that's happening in the world. And I've left these talks and these artistic happenings uplifted and inspired and determined to go on. And I'm grateful for that. And now as we close this collective creative engagement, we have invited our national and international network of publicly engaged artists, scholars, and organizers to reflect more personally on the twin pandemics that impact our own work. Tonight's program features members of this community responding to our thematics and Arundhati Roy's call to move through the portal and into an equitable new America and world. So from Taipei to here in New Orleans, our speakers will showcase work and address these 2 prompts. Number 1, what is the role of art, design, and creative culture in reimagining and rebuilding our world in ways that create anti-racist institutions, structures, practices, and ways of thinking? And number 2, as we move through the portal, what are the responsibilities and possibilities of our own work as artists, scholars, and organizers as we reimagine America? In speaking order, tonight's presenters are Justin Wolfe. Justin Wolfe is a historian of Latin America at Tulane University whose focuses on interconnections between social structure, politics, and human creativity. In recent years, he has been teaching and working in documentary filmmaking as a way to rethink how we tell history and as a means to decenter the scholar-author in the production of knowledge. Ecuadorian-born Jose Torres Tama is a published poet and playwright, an arts educator, a cultural activist, a visual and performance artist. He explores the underbelly of the North American dream mythology and the post-9/11 blind nationalism that has led to rampant anti-immigrant hysteria, gripping the United States of amnesia, as he calls it, which seduces its people into forgetting the atrocities committed in the name of freedom. Bidhan Chandra Roy is founder of Words Uncaged, faculty director of Cal State LA's Prison Graduation Initiative, and professor of English. Jeff Hou is a professor of landscape architecture and director of Urban Commons Lab at the University of Washington, Seattle. His work focuses on community design, design activism, and the engagement of marginalized communities through bottom-up placemaking. Sunni Patterson is without power and unfortunately and very understandably is unable to join us this evening. Asali DeVan Ecclesiastes is a mother, daughter, an educator, an organizer, an author, an event producer, a performance artist, a community servant, and CEO of Efforts of Grace Ashe Cultural Arts Center, where she continues to utilize her spoken and written word as a platform for social change and social justice through art. And singer, educator, healer, and Mardi Gras Indian Queen, Sula Spirit closes our main program with songs and prayers of healing and justice for us all.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for inviting me. I want to thank the organizers of Reimagining in America and this particular 2020 gathering and those behind the scenes for making this happen. We are in a difficult time right now. Our hurricane in New Orleans on top of the pandemic and everything else we've faced. So I really want to give a shout out to them. So my remarks begin with some history of my relationship with justice, then moves that to my relationship with the university, and finally ends with a brief discussion of a project I'm working on that tries to bring these together. So let me start on a personal note. My mother passed away this Saturday, and as I have started to reflect on her life in me, one of the first things I came to consider was my name. She named me Justin in homage to justice and fairness, a name that I have tried to live up to. And this has been a process as I've sought the wisdom of elders of what justice is and what it means to work for justice. And what I've learned from them is to prepare myself for pain. For we cannot build what Martin Luther King called the beloved community. We cannot share in that joyous future if we are not prepared to shed our protective armor. So I want to share some words from three of these elders. On January 2nd, 1961, Martin Luther King Jr. gave an address at the Municipal Auditorium in Savannah, Georgia. And in it, he said, "Non-cooperation with evil is as much a moral obligation as is cooperation with good. Don't let anybody fool you. We're not trying to free ourselves alone. If we cease to stand up, be counted, we are not our brother's keeper. We're seeking to free the white man. Why, I tell you, the system of segregation puts him in more slavery than it puts the Negro. Anybody who's a slave there, anybody who's a slave to prejudice, anybody who's a slave to fear, and many white people are, who really believe in integration, but they're afraid to say it. We're seeking to free these people." In 1965, James Baldwin published an essay called The White Man's Guilt, which I teach regularly to my history students. And he writes, "On the one hand, the white man can scarcely dare to open a dialogue which must, if it is honest, become a personal confession, a cry for help and healing, which is really, I think, the basis of all dialogues. And on the other hand, the black man can scarcely dare to open a dialogue which must, if it is honest, become a personal confession which fatally contains an accusation. And yet, if neither of us cannot do this, each of us will perish in those traps in which we have been struggling for so long." And I've thought through both of those statements, the different ways in which they've engaged with the idea of white people and what we must do, what we must think and engage in as part of that social justice practice. And more recently, I came across the words of the radical Jesuit priest Daniel Berrigan in 1973, and these have struck me so strongly, and I've continued to kind of think through them as such a central element of how to engage with these other elders. He wrote, "People seldom think of the memory as a creative power, one that brings together different senses of time, or keeps one from merely floating around and ricocheting off other people and events. This idea struck me in thinking about Martin Luther King and his attitude towards his own people. Even though there were the bitterest memories of bondage and enslavement, the people could arise and create a human future in the midst of their oppression. In some mysterious way, the bitter and unpromising past had been transformed into a vision of an entirely new future. And most stunning of all was the fact that the struggle, the exodus, as the Bible says, also included the keeper, the slave master. He was never left behind. The same exodus, of course, had to be seen in an entirely different light by whites. The question for King was, how do we cease being slaves? But the question for whites is, how do we cease being slave masters? Perhaps with this idea of justice in mind, it should not be surprising that I came to the university with radical dreams. But as a new scholar, I found myself being trained in an exclusionary system based on an almost medieval hierarchy and a faith in Enlightenment individualism. If we want to reimagine the university as part of reimagining our world, then we need to understand how it was constructed to work. The scholar's purpose is to explore the universe, observe the world, analyze the community, dissect the individual in service to the production of knowledge. And the university, which the scholar inhabits, is like a castle with a protective moat to keep out the commoners. Inside, scholars move through a system in which they begin as apprentices, students, ascend to journeymen, assistant professors, before being chosen or rejected for a place as a master, tenured professors. Having passed the requisite tests, the new scholar master is charged with reproducing this system, prizing the scholar over the commoner and protecting the university from those who fail to meet its standards. Bringing my work on justice to my work as a scholar has led me to see the need to reimagine and rebuild this system from the outside and the inside. From the outside, we need to have those who've been excluded to continue breaching the ramparts and claiming their places in this world, because the academic world is sly and seductive and is constantly seeking to squeeze these newcomers through the apprentice system in order to reform them into guardians of the castle. The other necessary transformation is a tearing down of the castle, of the model of a protected space of the production of knowledge. We need not merely to welcome people into the castle, we have to break it down so that we can relish different forms of knowledge and different epistemologies in the pursuit of a larger pursuit of justice. So I want to end by talking briefly about a project that I've begun working on that looks to try to do these things in different ways. I call this the Annotated Documentary Project, a kind of archival project that began out of two reflections. First, to rethink questions of authorship and ownership of the material that we produce, and second, to rethink how we understand the knowledge that gets produced. And I do this through work in documentary filmmaking. So for the first part about questioning authorship and ownership, I have created a release form that gives copyright ownership to the interviewee, who provides a Creative Commons license of the interview to the Annotated Documentary Archive. to be freely shown, modified, and reconfigured for non-commercial use only, with any commercial use requiring returning to the interviewee for their permission. But second, this project seeks to produce documentaries to engage in history and debate and oral testimony, but at the same time to peel back the practice of editing to make visible the original unedited source material and how it was transformed. In this way, it becomes like a footnote, an elaboration of the idea of the footnote, where any viewer can step out of the film and into the source material at any time. And in so doing, it brings an invitation to others to produce their own documentaries and to create their own knowledge. But work like this isn't an end in itself, but part of a process. I'm not sure if there is a portal, or when or if we get to the other side. But I know that the work of justice, the work of creating the beloved community, is a process that we must keep at without end. Thank you.
We hold these truths to be self-evident. How many poems to free the imprisoned? We hold these truths to be self-evident. How many poems to fight an invisible virus? We hold these truths to be self-evident. How many poems for immigrants dying, detained in crowded captivity of COVID-19, where Louisiana prison towns, Jenna, Pine Prairie, LaSalle, drive an economy of squalid conditions and ICE agents killed with unchecked impunity. Can I get a witness? We hold these truths to be self-evident. We dispossessed people taking a knee when national anthem plays in silence of our naked solitary confinement for hunger strikes against immoral convictions to hate us again. We hold these truths to be self-evident. We, our stories denied in tricentennial history books. White scholars' right to disappear any trace of our labor, to rebirth New Orleans after Katrina, because ivory skin privilege is unquestioned. Can I get a witness? We hold these truths to be self-evident. We are Jose, Jesus y María, Carlos, Joaquín, Guadalupe, Teresa, Antonio, Mercedes, Socorro. We are Pablo, Pedro, y Juanjo. We, essential workers, you sacrifice for insatiable hunger, working your fields. Can I get a witness? We hold these truths to be self-evident. We, without honor of bagpipe parades on Memorial Day. We, born brown without merit, suspect, breaking our backs, picking your strawberries, red with our blood that colors your own. Can I get a witness? We hold these truths to be self-evident. We can't even eulogize our dead, buried in unmarked graves because pandemic scares reporters further away to benefit ICE torture conducted in secret behind bars. We hold these truths to be self-evident. But God, cruel guards abandoned when they pepper sprayed our eyes to protect prison lies, will remember the trauma lodged in your dreams, burned into nightmares. We hold these truths to be self-evident. Our screams haunt you each night. You whiskey drink us away into a soulless oblivion for more dollars paid on our growing sacred cadavers. Can I get a witness? We hold these truths to be self-evident. We, abandoned at pearly gates of your heaven, invisible and ubiquitous, rebuilding your cities after another man-made catastrophe. We hold these truths to be self-evident. We undocumented without social security. We brown paper bag disposable people. We armies of cheap labor gold. We hold these truths to be self-evident. Your accountants paying us pennies under the table. For marble, we walked on our backs to your summer vacation. Can I get a witness? We hold these truths to be self-evident. We are José, Jesús y María, Carlos, Joaquín, Guadalupe, Teresa, Antonio, Mercedes, Socorro. We are Pablo, Pedro, y Juanjo. We, essential workers, you sacrifice for insatiable hunger. We, working your fields. Can I get a witness? Can I get an amen? Can I get a si se puede from Dolores Huerta again? Esto es pa' mi gente inmigrante, a poem from the prison of my mind while I shelter in place with my heart in my hand, con corazón en mi mano, pa' mi gente inmigrante, pa' mi gente inmigrante.
Hello. So here we are, pa mi gente inmigrante. So I want to let you know that these cortaditos are part of what I've done during the pandemic. So pa mi gente inmigrante, but in the tradition of New Orleans, pídele al legua que nos abra el camino. We petition Legba to open wide the pathways, and we say, Ashe. I want to shout out to Ausettua and the Congo Square, Brother Luther Gray, and all those beautiful folks out there. We live in a spiritual city. We've been grateful that many priestesses of Voodoo have managed to make their petitions to the warrior furies, and all these hurricanes that have been coming at us have managed to evade us, except for Zeta, of course, and now we're in a situation where half the city, or most of the city, 1 million people are without power. But I am grateful to be part of this. I have a light shining in because it is getting darker here earlier. What I want to say in relationship to the urgency of the now that MLK spoke about, and that is that we as artists, we have to really engage in speaking the people's truth. And that's what my work deals with, speaking the people's truth, in addition to the fact that I engage in creating these cortaditos so that I could create these video shorts during the pandemic. It was happening straight up right around mid to late March through April. And this one that you just saw, Can I Get a Witness, is one that I actually created on my own using an image taken by Shombi Shanti, who is my videographer, and the actual images from the performance at Ashe last August, where I performed Aliens, Immigrants, and Other Evildoers to 2 sold-out houses, and I was deeply grateful. Ashe has been a partner of my work since 2004. They've been supporting all of my work. So what this is a creative PSA in relationship to what has been happening here during COVID, and that is the lesser known aspects. And I'm having to use a little bit of this flashlight here because, I don't want to be fully in the dark for you. But the lesser known aspects is that during COVID, our immigrant asylum seekers, thousands of them, are trapped in these rural facilities, these ICE jails. They call them detention centers, but they're brutal ICE jails, and they are suffering, and COVID is spreading, and there's abuse, there's torture. We've heard already what happened in Georgia with the sterilization of the Cameroon women. You could just imagine that now during COVID, there is less press that's getting out there. So we have some serious challenges that are taking place. And this was my way of approaching it as a creative PSA, because I think it's a job of the artist to be able to speak the people's truth. As an Ecuadorian immigrant and I consider myself a bilingual citizen of the hemispheric Americas. I am a naturalized citizen, what is called here, but as an Ecuadorian-born immigrant growing up in New York with many immigrant communities there and living here in New Orleans in the hemispheric Americas in the multicultural port city of New Orleans, I am deeply engaged in making sure that we recognize the long Latin legacy and the fact that our people have rebuilt this city. A lot of our immigrant people, thousands upon thousands, have been part of the epic reconstruction. And the most challenging situation for me has been to bear witness to the fact that we can be so easily erased. And when I bring up the subject of white scholars and how easily we can be disappeared, this is a book, and I'm not sure if you're seeing it. Oh, well, this is published by the Louisiana Endowment for the Humanities. The Louisiana Endowment for the Humanities is a state arts agency, published the 2018 Tricentennial Anthology, and we are disappeared. We are not there. There's a post-Katrina chapter called Renewal. We are absolutely disappeared. It's a cultural deportation. I've been holding them accountable. In fact, Mama Carol, the previous executive director, recently retired, was bearing witness to my holding the LEH accountable. She guided me. I began holding them accountable back in February of 28. She guided me through the process. I've sent them letters, but they have been in absolute white privilege in their denial that it's afforded by white privilege. But this is when what scholars can do. They can disappear us. And Eduardo Galeano, the conceptual brilliant scholar of Latin America who wrote The Open Veins of Latin America, talks about making sure that we are aware that there are cultural organizations that abet the crimes and atrocities of governments. And as you know, in South America, especially with the CIA-supported coup of Pinochet, people were missing, they disappeared in Argentina. But this is the way a state arts agency disappears our people. And I've been holding them accountable. Mama Carol actually told them back in the fall of 2018 to address the issue, but of course, they are in denial. So that's what that particular piece speaks about, and the importance of the artist. I'm a renegade scholar. I do a lot of research, and I speak to the United States of Amnesia. And I call it this because it seduces us to embrace forgetting of the many atrocities that are committed. But in addition, during this anti-immigrant hysteria, it seduces us to forget that it villainizes and dehumanizes the same people, the same immigrants whose labor is exploited, very much like the parallel dehumanization of African Americans during enslavement, especially in this Catholic port city. Let's not forget that the Catholic Church was very much involved in the enslavement of Africans here. So we have seen this. So when we see children in cages at the border, we have seen children in cages here in New Orleans. The Ogden Museum published a book of mine a while back, New Orleans Free People of Color. It's a visual history project on the Creoles that quite often were a combination of African, French, and Spanish. Both the French and the Spanish were brutal Catholic colonizers. Let's not forget, on Jackson Square, they would have lynchings. And in fact, they would sever the heads of slave revolt leaders and place them on 10-foot poles. They're not going to tell you that in the actual walking tours, because it'll disturb the tourists into understanding the brutal reality of what took place here. So now we have a new people that are being dehumanized and exploited, and that's the undocumented immigrant, right? And within these jails in rural places, rural towns like Jenna, Pine Prairie, Winchester, Richmond, there's no overseeing them, especially during this COVID-19. So for me, if you hear the urgency of my voice, it's because it comes from the urgency of the now that MLK spoke about. And it's the artist's job to remember the people's truth. In the United States of Amnesia that seduces us to embrace forgetting, we have to remember the people's truth against the official lies. And that's what my work is about. And that's the job of the artist, confronting the parallel pandemics. By this December, it'll have been 400 years since the Pilgrims landed on Plymouth Rock. Myself, I'm a vegetarian. I don't celebrate this so-called Thanksgiving of slaughter of millions of turkeys across the land, while most families are watching college football players. They don't even dare take a knee for them in relationship to the Black Lives Matter. But it'll be 400 years since the Pilgrims came here and began exacting their genocide of the indigenous people and the Native Americans. Let's remember the 3/5 Human Compromise gave the enslaved African people, they were given the distinction of being three-fifths human, right? Which is brutal, but the Native Americans were just called savages. And we can't forget that, because we often have a problem in understanding the full breadth of all the atrocities committed here in the United States of amnesia. And I think that is my time. So thank you very much.
If you notice where prisons are in California, they're tucked away in the middle of deserts. They're tucked out in the middle of nowhere. We very literally take people and put them in an invisible space where no one sees them.
It is a long drive, and doing that once a week can be really tiring. But I think absolutely worth it.
Initially, when we set this up, and one of the ways we pitched it was that the students here would be mentoring the incarcerated students, and actually, almost to the person, it turns out to be the other way.
Dear Daisy, good morning. I hope this letter finds you in the best of conditions. Your letter was mind-blowing, to say the least. I can tell a lot about someone's character through writing them. I'm not sure how. It may be a gift or just the vibe. Whatever it is, my first response was, oh yeah, she's the real deal for sure.
I have had some students that have been going through some very difficult times. They're signing up for an English class. They don't know they're going to be writing to a prisoner. And then as the exchange goes on over the semester, their writing partners have been the ones that have really given them so much comfort and helped them through that difficult time. For the student, obviously they're very grateful that that happened. But then for the incarcerated writer, it's something that they can really be proud of, that they get to touch their life in a positive way.
It's different because if I'm having a conversation just with somebody on the yard, it's not as, how do I say this without sounding horrible, intellectual. By the time I started to write the Cal State Student, I was free enough to talk about it. And I think we related more on that, right? Like, it's motivating. I was no longer an inmate, right? I was just another human being, as we all should look at each other as, right?
Life Without Parole are this stable population in there. They're like this kind of tenured professors, if you like. So if you educate that population, when the young kids are coming into the yard, they're developing a culture from the elders.
Because when they see an inmate that's serving life without parole, trying to get his education, it gives these other guys that have dates to say, man, like, if he's doing it, I'm getting out. So I need to get my stuff together so I can go be a productive member of society.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me on this wonderful panel. What you saw just there was a clip of my my sort of day job as a professor and a faculty director of a prison BA program. But I want to sort of start by backing up a little bit to respond to the prompts of the role that I see design, art, creative culture in creating an anti-racist world. So let me start by saying that I think anti-racist structures and institutions require a fundamental rethinking of our being in the world, something beyond what most academics in my field at least usually discuss, something that's an act of spiritual imagination and praxis. So for me, the central problem is thinking of human beings as somehow autonomous individual subjects that are discrete from all other being. The idea that we are somehow separate from the world, from the earth, from animals, from each other, and then following on from this, that sentient beings can be categorized and ranked, afforded rights or not, resources or not, is the illusion on which racism is built. So academia and theory have been very good at critiquing this kind of worldview, but I don't think they've been very good at offering alternatives. And now is the time for, from my perspective, to build alternatives as well. And this is something that I see that is spiritual and effective work, and that creative practices are really central to achieving. And I guess what I'm saying really is that we have to fall in love with the world again. To use or to respond to Max Weber's phase, we need a re-enchantment of the world. We need to see and recognize the irreducible wonderfulness of being, the strangeness and wonder of being alive. And I think aesthetics and creativity are really important in reminding us of this beauty of all beings, and that our experience in the world is relational, rather than us owning anything in a narrow individualistic sense. And I kind of am aware as I'm speaking here that this sounds rather impractical and pie in the sky for some people. And I think it should sound like that, because for me to truly invent or reinvent the world as anti-racist, we need we need the most expansive thinking and doing possible that's beyond what I'm traditionally trained to do as a professor within the academy. So to think about our sort of responsibilities as artists, scholars, organizers, as we move through this portal and reimagine America, I think for me, it starts from understanding anti-racism as a way of being in the world in the kind of ways I've described, and that we then need to create equitable structures and institutions by first enacting them. We need to begin with the process, a process that includes everyone, not just an elite few, and that this process solidifies into new structures and institutions, but at the same time that there's a kind of always a deconstructive element to it built in to make sure they don't solidify too much. And I think that this process has to be radically inclusive and inductive, that builds from the grassroots upwards, so the institutions include all of us. For me, it's not enough to only produce art or write academically through an individualized, siloed practice that defines my profession and many of our professions. You know, the auteur, the publishing academic, the lone romantic artist. I think our responsibility is to go beyond this, and that in order to produce and create an anti-racist reimagining of America, that it's not just the question of new content, but new forms of expression, and that these forms of expression need to be collective forms of expression. So we need a participatory process, not a spectator sport or a space of cultural consumption. And I want to sort of end by trying to give an example of this that we're trying to do with Words Uncaged, which is our prison non-profit that is connected to my work as a professor, but it's not technically owned by the university. So we try this approach and we occasionally succeed with it. Right now, we're working on a project called Imagine a World Without Prisons. And it's a collaboration between well-known artists, like the photos you've been seeing on your screen by Peter Hugo, Cal State LA students, incarcerated and artists and writers, some of which you saw in the video at the beginning, former Crip leaders in South Los Angeles like Baby Moon, and former Blood leaders like Tiny Braze, choreographers like Dimitri Chamblas, and a few celebrities like the rapper YG, as well as community organizers like Tobias Tubbs. And our task in this project is to create a platform for incarcerated thinkers and artists to imagine what a world without prisons would look like. What would it feel like? What would it sound like? How would we repair the harm caused by our incarcerated members in better ways than prisons achieve? How do we all heal collectively? How do we see people as the lights that they are? How do we create new stories, metaphors, experiences, and images that invite people to experience something that for many is unimaginable, a world without prisons? What is the texture of this new world? And this collective effort is not just discursive. As part of this project, we're also creating a new program in South LA that uses art and creativity to help young gang members reimagine and restore their lives as an alternative to going to prison. So this is a pilot program as an alternative to sending young men and women to juvenile prisons and hopefully the first step into to ending juvenile prisons in Los Angeles more generally. Our formerly incarcerated members trained with us in prison to do this work, and when they come out, they're now given the opportunity to actually do that and to repair some of the harm that they've caused. And we also have our currently incarcerated writers and artists collaborating as well as kind of remote mentors. And within this program, much like was mentioned earlier by Justin, the idea of ownership is important for us, because it's very hard to make a living in America when you're a felon. Everyone owns part of the program, so that any money that comes in through grants or stuff is shared through all the members doing the work. And so everyone is sort of sharing and learning from each other in this. And the kind of question becomes, how can we use this to tell the story that our brothers and sisters behind the wall are not problems to be solved or people to be feared, but shining lights and assets, and are necessary co-architects in this new egalitarian world that we're trying to imagine. So I can't claim this is an anti-racist institution yet, and it's not even really an anti-racist structure, but it is a practice of a world without prisons, and it is a practice of anti-racist collectivity. And I know of a lot of practices like this throughout South Los Angeles and East Los Angeles. And I think with a little help, support, nourishment, these practices could unite to become the anti-racist institutions of tomorrow. So what I want to stress is, what I think is important is the process through which we do this, which is a horizontal process of exchange in which people's current social positions are irrelevant. The process is itself, for me, a small step toward the unmaking of prisons, a process of equal ownership and equal responsibility, a small enactment of the world we want to see. And so it's from here, from this kind of process, that I think we need to build our institutions upwards. The institutions and structures that we have are not transcendental. And I think they can and should be a manifestation of these kind of processes that includes everyone. And the anti-racist institutions are made by all of us. So I want to end with an excerpt from an incarcerated writer, a member of our program, who's sentenced to life without parole. For those of you that don't know what that means, it's basically the death penalty by incarceration. You've got no chance of getting out of prison or parole. And it may sound, when I'm reading it, like a poem written by a singular author, but so many hands went in to enable this poem to reach you, both inside and outside of prison. And as I read it, I'm seeing all these unseen hands. So this is by Dante Hayes, his prison number K88757, and it's an excerpt from his longer poem, A World Uncaged. A world uncaged. I'm addicted to this vision. I'm addicted to a world without crystal. I'm addicted to a world where we don't abuse liquor and this criminal gang lifestyle. I'm addicted to its potential, if only it wasn't criminal. Imagine that. Now imagine that, friend, you have hooked on crystal meth. We all have them, Oxycontin or the heroin addicted. We all turn our nose at fucking dope fiend. Will a world without prisons make them all clean? Or is this just some sort of unimaginable dream? Let's ask Dr. Martin Luther King, Henry Ford, or the Wright brothers. Hell, let's ask that Mark Zuckerberg. Well, you get the gist. This isn't a dream. This is us. We have the creative power. We have the infinite wisdom. We only have to think about it, talk about it, and really be about it. A world without prison, to make it a reality, this seemingly unattainable vision, a world uncaged. Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity to join this plenary. As someone whose work focuses on civic engagement, I have been just blown away by all the acts of kindness and generosity that people have undertaken to support each other during the last few months. In Seattle earlier this year, almost as soon as the shelter-in-place order was issued by our governor, community volunteers, including those in the Chinatown International District, mobilized to coordinate donations, supplies, and delivery of food to our elderly residents who were not able to leave their apartment units. In addition to in-person engagements, people also mobilized online to support local businesses. You're looking at a social media group that was set up by friends of our neighborhoods to encourage others to shop and order takeouts in our community to support our local businesses. The group has more than 20,000 members, more than 5 times the number of residents in the neighborhood. Like many other citizens, artists play an important role.
Now none of these charges are
efforts. In Chinatown International District, where storefront windows were boarded up to protect against racially motivated vandalism, artists, volunteers organized to paint the plywood panels to make the community a more welcoming place rather than a place of fear. What started out as the generous act of a small group of artists turned into a series of remarkable events like the CID mural party that involved hundreds of volunteers. Again, hundreds of people, artists and volunteers, parents and kids show up for the mural parties to support the community and the local businesses. Folks who may or may not be residents of the community or a member of the neighborhood coming together to show their support. They create art that demonstrates solidarity across the racial divide, Asians for Black Lives. They create arts that tell the story of the community that once faced similar injustices. Stories of friendship that transcends the racial divide. Bruce Lee was actually a member of our community back in the late 1950s and early 1960s. This mural was in front of his favorite restaurants in the neighborhood. Art that tells stories about our community's own struggle in the past and how we have persevered. Art that supports local businesses, family businesses that have been struggling during the pandemic. Art that inspires others to do the same in places across the city, from downtown to the neighborhoods. Art that inspires faculty like me to think about ways that we can leverage our resources and expertise within the university, the College of Built Environments at the University of Washington, and the profession to help those in need. One of the communities that were most in need during the pandemic in Seattle was the unhoused population, folks who live on the streets as if life on the street was not tough enough already. During the pandemic, they lose access to meet some of the most basic needs, such as personal hygiene. As libraries, community centers, and other public facilities that they were able to access before were all shut down. To meet this need, the city of Seattle rented units like this, but they were costly to maintain and were vandalized easily. So a group of colleagues and myself at the University of Washington, with the support from Real Change, a street newspaper and homeless advocacy organization in Seattle, started a project called Seattle Street Sink. The project was to design a DIY hand washing station that anyone can build with parts that they can either buy online or off the shelf, and to install them on their own properties that are accessible to those in need. To meet the regulatory requirements in Seattle, we added a bioretention planter to cleanse the wastewater before it enters the sewer system. The unit becomes functional once it's attached to an outdoor hose bed. And in addition to hand washing, the unit provides a much needed amenity, especially in a deserted streets or alleyway. It provides a much more dignified experience for those who actually use it. With help of a website and social media, organizations in and out of Seattle have been making and adopting these units. These are some of the street scenes that have been hosted by schools, nonprofit groups, religious organizations, and so on in and out of Seattle. Most recently, we were contacted by a group based in at Duke University, who folks who actually got a permit from the city of Durham to put these in public places. My colleagues in architecture have been working on a version 2 of this design. This was an earlier iteration. The finished version is now being hosted at a Sikh temple in Renton, just outside Seattle. To scale up the operation, Real Change has been working with the City Council to put this in the municipal budget for the coming year, and for the Seattle Public Utility to run this program. Obviously, building these hand washing stations is far from enough to address the root causes of homelessness, but hopefully this could inspire others to become more aware and understand the issues and challenges and to join the fight to address them. In summary, to inspire is exactly what art and design can accomplish and contribute to the current and future crisis. By inspiring others, we can begin to mobilize the support that we need, resources, network, skills, expertise, and the determination to make a difference. With inspirations and mobilization, we must also give people the agency and empower them to make the changes themselves, to be a part of that change. So in answering the question about the role of art, design, and creative culture in reimagining and rebuilding our world, and the question about our responsibility and possibility of our work, I say that we as artists, designers, and scholars must use our knowledge and skills to inspire, mobilize, and empower, and also to be a part of the change that we would like to see in the world. Thank you.
There are some chasms so deep and so wide. It's hard to imagine how we make it safely to the other side. The space between who we are and who we want to be. The gaps that separate our high ideals from our base realities. The distance between what we say and what we really mean. The raging river that flows between what actually happened and the convenience of our memories. The lies we tell ourselves are lakes, overflowing their banks, flooding our speech with waters caustic and rank. The only bridge is the truth, passing through me and you as we look one another in the eye. But so often that look is filled with our hesitations, and we can't help but glance to the side. See, we've long ago let go of the language with which we describe our softer parts. We learned early that those with softer hearts suffer, so we allow lean emotion to reign, never noticing only strain has been the fruit of our restraint. We haven't escaped pain, and our battle scars are far from faint. Yet and still, despite our desire and our willingness to heal, we often find ourselves fighting hard in the paint, holding on to false images of everything we ain't. So while our dreams coincide, our fears collide, and we want to know one another, but think we can't. The gulfs between empathy and equity are as unfathomable as the fissures lining our collective integrity. And we spend internal eternities trying to twist that into virtue. Perhaps you have met one or two of the virtuous on your path. There are only very few. And I know that I have from time to time mistaken pretenders for real, yet still make room for the possibility that it is I who's been pretending. Please bear with me, I'm still mending, but I'm no longer bending to the will of my injuries, nor my injurers. I much prefer to stretch my arms like Newt until I become the sky. I'd rather stretch my tongue with truth, our bridge to cross when we look one another in the eye. But the tongue, like the heart, gets tired. The weak make it hard for the strong to stay inspired, like the lost prevent the found from escaping the mire, and the degraded stop the enlightened from taking us higher. But no matter what we hear from the mouths of these liars, we are one people with one destiny and a common enemy. That's why it really stresses me to see our hearts so tattered, our minds so scattered, our egos so easily flattered. We are enslaved, yet think of our shackles as gifts. Rather than resist our masters, we let them widen our rifts like mindless material junkies. We seek that which lowers, not lifts. But somewhere in our midst lives a paradigm shift. Justice is getting restless as in its chains. Our youth find it useless to separate their souls from their brains. Their truth is ingrained, their integrity sustained. I look into the eyes of our beautiful children who serve as our examples. Those who daily give their all and their reserves are still ample. Those who battle friends and foe, yet their hope is never trampled. They make music, never sample, and the world's ugly will never cancel the fullness and the sweetness of their compositions, nor the unadulterated truth of their missions. Sometimes we've got to be quiet and listen, close our eyes and pray for the humility and the guidance to follow them to the way. Whew. So that is a poem I wrote called Chasms. And as I listened to all of the previous speakers tonight, each one who touched something very significant in me. Each one who spoke about truth in this context of imagining America. And I regret that the session that Sunni and I recorded for you that didn't get to see that tonight, because there's something you have to hear the poem she created for you. We'll make that happen later. But in being able to respond in the moment to my co-panelists, I appreciate that, and I appreciate the meaning that it helped to increase inside of my own work, in both my poetic work and my artist activist work. And so as we're talking about imagining America and the role of the artist, I think that it is so clear that the role of the artist is to make America actually see its true self. And that artists are really the only trusted messengers to be able to do that work. In the society where people, particularly people of color, have been betrayed so often by the professions, by the scholarly world, by the industrial world, by municipal and government, anybody with letters behind their names. Our people have been used from research to labor to just whatever form of commodification without reciprocity, you name it, the history is there. So in this moment, the best thing that we can do to reimagine America is to put the trusted messengers on the front line in revealing what America actually is. We can never go forward if we don't acknowledge the truth and the fullness of who we are, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And that just is what it is. It's why, you know, projects like the 1619 Project are so important inside of journalism. It is why the work of Ashe Cultural Arts Center is so important and pivotal to what happens in our city of New Orleans as we reimagine what our society can be. We're committed to putting artists on the front line of each of those initiatives, from public health struggles to economic development to housing, transportation, whatever our disparities and our challenges are. We know without a doubt that artists are the ones who can be trusted to deliver the truth. And it is only through the truth that we will have a just and equitable way forward. I thank Reimagining America from the bottom of my heart for this work that you're doing, for this gathering that you have created, that you have increased in the face of what might have and could have, if we weren't of greater spirit, meant not having this event. Instead, it has been a most spectacular happening that has been intergenerational, intercommunity, interdisciplinary, interthought, interdreaming. And so I think that what we all will walk away from this with is a piece of the truth that helps us in our art, that helps us in our activism, and that challenges us, as James Baldwin said, who was also evoked today, to do the work that artists are free to do. And that is to do what we must. Thank you, Reimagining America. Thank you to my fellow panelists. And thank you to each and every person who has shared in touch with us throughout this month-long experience.
Greetings and peace. I don't know, do I need to do something here?
She says you're good. They say you're on.
Oh, I'm on. Okay. Greetings and peace, all. My name is Nana Sula Spirit, and I'm the Chief Nana at the Temple of Light, Ile de Coin Coin, here in New Orleans, Louisiana, in Musicians Village. I'm honored to be a part of this panel and a part of Reimagining America and being a part of bringing greater elevation and light to the planet. I thank you all for inviting me to this panel, and I really want to offer prayer for the planet, prayer for the water, prayer for the people. We ask right now that everybody be blessed and that everybody be made well. And I would like to begin by ringing a bell to call the ancestors and call the divine spirits in from the north, south, east, and west to come to be with us. So I'm just going to open with prayer and also offer a song for the healing of the water and for our wealth and prosperity as a people. The song that I will sing after the prayer is a song to Mami Water. I'm a priestess of Mami Water, the mother of all waters. And she's a great mother who comes to bless us and comes to bring light to the planet, and also comes to remind us of our divine wisdom and our divine ability to change things on this planet. So let us begin with prayer, and then I will go on into the song, which I will also explain the song. So, by the power of all this holy, we come. We thank you so much for the mother and father creation. We thank you so much for all of the beautiful people on this call and all the people that are in on this planet in earshot of this call, we say Ashe to all. We thank you so much for the divine organizers of this, and we're asking that everyone be blessed in their work. We're asking right now for the healing of this earth. We're asking right now for the elevation of this planet. We're asking right now that we all be made well and we all come into a place of divine respect and integrity with one another. We're also asking that our children be blessed, that our children be protected, that our children be given light. We're asking for divine health, divine strength, and divine healing on the planet. We're asking for the eradication of injustice and hatred on the planet. We're asking that all that is holy come to birth this planet with a new reality that deals with respect of human life, respect of each other, and integrity towards all human beings. May we be able to see each other and look at each other in the eyes, to be able to see humanity in each other so that we can be reminded of how to treat each other. We pour libation and we give thanks and praise for all of the children on the planet that are coming to bring extra light here. All those that are being born in this time, all the avatars and light beings and crystal rainbow children that are coming in right now to elevate this planet. We're asking you right now, great divine creator, in known by many names, in the names of all that are holy, in the name of all the names that we call the divine creator, we ask that this planet be blessed. We need a peace upon this planet. We need a washing upon this planet. We need a washing and a cleansing of all that is not needed. All those things that have harmed us as a people, we're asking that go. All those things that have no longer served us as a people. We're asking right now also that our elders be held up and respected. We ask that our elders be held up and respected, that the wisdom seat that they sit upon, may we be wise enough to go with them and to learn what they want to leave us, to learn more about legacy work and how we can pass the baton from one to another. May we, as people who are elders in the making, may we be conscious enough to give very freely the gifts of the spirit that we've been given so that the next generation can prosper. So we pour libation, we pour libation, we pour libation, we pour water on the ground to give a drink offering to all those that have gone on before us. All those that have gone on before us, we pour libation, which is a drink offering that we pour on the ground to say, we thank you. We give praise for you. We thank you for all you have given. So to all of our ancestors, our collective ancestors, may they come to join us in this fight. May they come to join us in our desire to elevate humanity. And may we all be given the direction and the divine instruction to reach our divine destiny and do the destiny work that we have come on this planet to do. So may all that's holy bless this work. May all that's holy surround this work. And may there be a light upon this planet so great that we can hardly look at it. We're asking you right now for divinity, for grace, for light, for peace, and for everything that is good to be upon this planet. I now offer this song to Mami Water. Mami Water, we ask that you come to bless the waters, that we be given proper drinking water, that everyone around this planet be given clean water to drink. We're asking that our fish and the ones that are swimming in the water, that they be blessed. We're asking for the divinity of creation. We say in this song, Igbigi welego nalemo, Igbigi mother, in the Igbo language of Africa, West Africa. Igbigi mother, we call her Igbigi. Igbigi welego nalemo, Igbigi mother. We ask you to bring us wealth. Welego nalemo, Igbina chandoma. We say, Mami Water, if it is so, you will bring us wealth. And we need wealth in order to increase this planet. We need wealth in terms of spirit, in terms of health, in terms of strength, and in terms of money. May we be given the money that we need. May we be given everything that we need to sow seeds of goodness into one another. So we're asking you right now, Mami Water, that you would bring us wealth in many ways, not only in our physical bodies, but wealth and goodness on this planet, wealth and goodness in all that we touch, wealth and goodness in all that we speak about. So we're thanking you so much. By the power of all this holy, we offer this song to Mami Water and to all of you and to all mothers, to the divine mothers of creation, all the mothers and many, many names that we call the mother. We ask that the mother come to elevate this planet and to heal us and mother us when we need mothering. Igbigi welego nalemo, Mami Water welego nalemo, Igbina chandoma, welego nalemo, Mami Water Welego nalemo. Ik ben achandoma. Mami wata. Welego nalemo. Ik ben achandoma. Mami wata. Welego nalemo. Ik ben achandoma. Yes, may the Mother Creation come to bless us. Mother known by many, many names. And now we ask for the blessing of the earth. We speak to the one they call Baba Luaye Baba, Father Lu of the earth. Baba Luaye. He comes to remove pestilence from the earth. He's a West African energy that comes to heal us. So for anyone who's dealing with illness in the body, illness in the spirit, illness in the mind, may you be healed in this moment. We're asking that all that is holy in the divine creator, one that comes to heal, that we be blessed by that energy. This song and the video is in a very, very important place, the video that will play next. It's in a place called Lincoln Beach, and it is the only place that African Americans were able to go to water legally during the time of segregation or during the time that things were segregated. So the video is in a very important place that's honoring the African ancestors that were able to go to Lake Pontchartrain and create their own beach, their own place, because they weren't allowed to go to the white beaches. So they went to Lincoln Beach because that was a place where they were able to bring their families and have meals and be able to go into the water. So it was a very important video shoot that was that I did that took place at this historical site. Please look it up. It's called Lincoln Beach in the New Orleans east part of New Orleans. This song, Baba Luaye, this energy, Baba Luaye, we say, Father, Father, we ask you to come to bless this earth. We ask that our lands be blessed. We ask that all those that are standing on the land be blessed. We ask that this COVID-19, this pestilence, whatever it is on the earth, that it be eradicated. We're asking that anyone who is dealing with illness in the body, illness in the spirit, and illness in the mind be healed by this song. So I'm going to sing the song and then we're going to go into the video. And I pray that you all enjoy the video. It is an absolute honor and just a joy for me to be a part of this as we reimagine a greater America, as we reimagine a place where we can actually love each other freely and be in total integrity with each other. Total integrity with each other. So may the Mother of Creation bless us. May the Father of Creation bless us. May all of our ancestors be lifted up. May they guide us in this time, and may they be the wisdom seat upon which we sit. So may everyone be healed. And this song is for the healing of all of you. If anyone has any part in their body that needs healing, just touch it in this time. If it's your heart that needs healing during this song, touch it. If you have a headache, touch your head. Whatever part of you needs wellness. If it is your soul, speak to your soul. And I pray that you receive the blessing of this song. And this is calling for healing. Ekwa Baba Luaye kwa Baba Luaye kwa Oba Luaye kwa Ekwa Baba Luaye kwa Baba Luaye kwa Oba Luaye kwa Baba Luaye kwa Baba Luaye kwa
Babaluaye kwa Babaluaye kwa Obaluaye kwa kwa Babaluaye kwa kwa Babaluaye kwa kwa Babaluaye kwa Obaluaye kwa Babaluaye kwa Obaluaye kwa Babaluaye kwa Babaluaye kwa
So thank you all so much. I hope you all enjoyed the video, and I just appreciate being a part of this beautiful offering. Let us do great work for this planet. Let us do great work to heal this planet. And I just want to give respect and honor to all of you, and also to the Mardi Gras Indians. I'm a Mardi Gras Indian with the Mandingo Warriors, the spirit of Fayaya. And that suit was in honor of the mother of creation and also the father of creation. So I give thanks to all of you, and I am very honored to be a part of this circle, and I'm looking forward to growing with all of you. God bless you all. Nana Sula Spirit. Ashe.
Thank you all. And I'm going to also be joined by my co-organizers, Wood and Deanna, in a second. So thank you, Sula, for your blessings and for bringing it home, and a really incredible end to this program that you all have gifted us here this evening to close out our month-long engagement. My name is Nina Matlin, and on behalf of the planning team for this month-long collective creative engagement, I want to extend, really our deep gratitude to Sula Spirit, Jeff Hou, Jose Torres Tama, Bidhan Chandra Roy, Justin Wolfe, Sunni Patterson, who couldn't be here today, but was working with the poem with Asali DeVan Ecclesiastes, and of course our opening performers, Ausettua Amor Amenkum, Luther Gray, Bill Summers, Nyla Lala Smith, Shaka Zulu, and Joara Simon, and to our videographer, Abdul Aziz, who filmed both our opening performance that opened this space today, and our opening plenary performance with Sunni Patterson and Taronia Tank Ball that opened this entire month-long event. A particular thanks to our New Orleans presenters for navigating these especially tumultuous times to being with us this evening. We really appreciate you all for making tonight happen in the midst of so much that is going on in your city. We also thank all of our presenters who shared the gifts of their time, work and experiences with us throughout this month-long virtual series, our event funder, the National Endowment for the Arts, and our sponsors, UC Davis Office of Public Scholarship and Engagement and the UC Davis Global Affairs. We further thank you, members of the IA community, for responding to our call for participation in such creative ways and for joining us this month. Finally, on behalf of Reimagining America, we'd like to express our great appreciation for our organizing partners, the Ashe Cultural Arts Center and Tulane University, and our 2020-21 National Gathering Steering Committee for all of their hard work in a year that has required so much of us, all just physically, emotionally, and spiritually. You can see their names here on the slide, and thank you. Thank you all so much. So throughout this month, we've engaged in a collective reimagining of the multiple systems, structures, and ways of being that shape our lives. This month-long journey has taken us back to our roots, inviting us to remember and see different ways of relating to our food, land, and the environment, to consider expansive approaches to community development and planning, and to reimagine the spaces, places, and ways in which we share and transfer knowledge across communities, generations, and movements, and to place ourselves within these systems and structures and asking, what are the responsibilities and possibilities of our own work as engaged artists, scholars, and organizers as we traverse these tumultuous times and build a world where all lives matter, because Black lives matter, Indigenous lives matter, trans lives matter, and immigrant lives matter. What steps can we take to be in right relationship with each other and our environment? As we close this month, I hope you have found a renewed sense of purpose, inspiration, and community. I know I found it in you and in our partners and this community's unwavering commitment to realizing a just and liberatory American world. Whatever happens next week, I draw comfort that we will nevertheless find a way to move through the portal. As Asali said in her poem earlier, justice is getting restless in its chains. And so I have no doubt that we will find a way to unlock those chains. That said, if you can, and if you haven't already, please vote. And if you find yourselves online on Wednesday, November 4th, looking for a post-election conversation to join, we also invite you to the Manetti Shrem Museum's Claudia Rankin reading and lecture, Just Us, An American Conversation. You can find out more details about this lecture on our event site at iagathering.org. So again, thank you all. And I now pass it to my co-organizer, Diana Soto Olsen.
Gracias a todos, a todas. Working with Reimagining America and Ashe Cultural Arts Center has brought together so many parts of Tulane University, the Center for Gulf South, the Studio in the Woods, the Newcomb Art Museum, the School of Liberal Arts, the Center for Public Service, the Small Center, and more. And we are looking forward to deepening those bonds as we deepen those we have made with artists, activists, and cultural bearers from around New Orleans. Thank you all. Gracias a todos.
Well, greetings, family. I was with you in the beginning, and now we're here at the closing. Across the trails of our existence, we remember. We cling to tapestries of images and sounds, of words and moments that shape and mold our very fabric. We mostly remember, though, our stories. However grand or small, embellished or painfully steeped in truth, our stories are the roadmap to our survival, and they tell the tale of how we got over. So how will we tell the stories of 2020? As these stories are truly, as our theme says, tumultuous times. A global pandemic that has taken the lives of over 1 million people and counting, another 45 million infected. These global weather events that included bomb cyclones, earthquakes, Saharan dust, millions of acres of destroyed by record wildfires in different spaces, and a hurricane season that produced more named storms than any other time in history. In particular, for people of color and for those of African descent, a systemic racism and injustice continue to be the pandemic that we fought for our entire existence. So what better way to tell the story of 2020 than that with a tale of reimagination, of rebranding and rebuilding, of resilience, resistance, of revolution. And what better way to end our month-long collective creative engagement than with a new beginning to look forward to look toward, and a re-invitation to the 2021 Imagining America gathering, which will take place in a city that knows a lot about resilience and a lot about rebuilding. So if I may, I'd like to reintroduce myself and invite you to my city. My name is Frederick Wood Delahousie, and I'm an artist from New Orleans, where we live and breathe art and culture. It is the soundtrack to our lives and the tone of our existence. It speaks to the history in all of us and lays tracks to our lineage, our roots, our neighborhoods, and our nation. To live in New Orleans is to plan a part of our lives on our second lines, Super Sundays, Super Tuesdays, Fat Tuesdays, and festivals. To open our windows and discover an ancestor has passed on because the music declares that we pay homage to the fallen. To live in New Orleans is to have an intimate relationship with culture and rhythm and walk to a beat that sometimes only we can hear. We are a magical, mystical, musical place where we sing and dance because celebration is beautiful and necessary even after a hurricane. And it is every bit of who we are. And so it is my immense pleasure to invite you to the 2021 Imagining America in-person gathering that will be here in New Orleans, Louisiana. I can't wait to see you and hug you or give you a Wakanda salute. If we can't hug by then, we'll do all of that. But until then, I'd like to invite our planning team to join me in saying thank you. They'll start coming on the screen. Come on, planning team, join us. In saying thank you for taking this journey with us, for taking the time to reimagine and rebuild, to taking the time to stay safe, stay sanitized, go vote, and most importantly, take your time and happy reimagining.